When a television franchise exists for 30 plus years, especially a franchise that involves several different shows in the same universe, you're going to see some story ideas get reused. But Star Trek takes it to a whole different level, famously using stories involving killer AIs, time travel, and the triumph of the human spirit again and again and again. But that's not all. They also love dredging through Earth's history to square off against Hollywood's favorite boogeyman, the National Socialist German Workers' Party, which you probably know by the more common name, the Nazis.
Hey Starfleet, I think it's time to have your new recruits study German, because chances are, at some point in their career, they're going to have to overthrow the Third Reich. But don't take our word for it, because here are 4 times Star Trek defeated the Nazis.
Captain Kirk versus Adolf Hitler!
It all started so innocently, in an episode of the original series called The City on the Edge of Forever. It's a pretty classic Trek episode.
In fact, it's one of only 6 TV episodes in history to have ever won the Hugo Award.
It involves an unknown alien planet with a machine that lets you travel back in time. For some reason, this machine is built into a stone ring that looks like it was designed by someone who was really into modern art. Anyways, everyone goes back in time, and McCoy saves a woman who runs a homeless shelter. And then she, somehow, convinces Franklin Roosevelt not to enter the World War II. And by the time America shows up to beat the Nazis and save the world, it's too late. German scientists have built the atomic bomb, and the Nazis take over the world. So, to preserve the appropriate timeline, Kirk has to go back in time again and stop McCoy from saving her life. Also, Kirk is deeply in love with this woman, so bad luck for him.
Oh, Kirk, will you never find lasting love?
All in all, it's a pretty good episode of the classic series, and the Nazis are just used as an easily identifiable place where the timeline can diverge from what we know. It's really a story about how it's a bad idea to go messing with the past, even with the best intentions. Hardly a new story idea, especially in science fiction, but it was a first for Trek, and they did a good job. Handshakes all around. And then things start to go nuts. Less than a season later comes an episode called Patterns of Force. Kirk and Spock meet a whole planet full of Nazis. See, the Enterprise goes to this planet Ekros to look for a missing historian named John Gill. When they get there, someone on the planet fires a nuclear missile at them, technology that should be centuries away from this primitive planet. When the 2 highest-ranking officers on the ship head down to the planet to see what's up, they find that the entire planet is ruled by a fully functional Nazi party with all the SS and Gestapo trappings.
And we get our first, and unfortunately last, view of shirtless Leonard Nimoy as Spock, complete with lime green blood, of course. Delicious all around.
But wait, things take a turn for the dramatic when we discover that the Fuhrer is none other than the missing historian, John Gill. What's more, the planet is gearing up for a war of extermination against their neighboring planet, Zeon.
Oh, like Zion. I see what they did there.
You see, Gill snuck onto the planet and set up a Nazi party because Nazi Germany was, in his words, the most efficient government in history.
Which, by the way, is a ridiculous fallacy rejected by most historians. And of all things, that is the line that managed to get this episode banned from Germany until 2011.
But of course, despite Gill's good intentions, just wearing those uniforms makes you want to conquer and kill. So he lost control of the government he created as his subordinates kept him in a drugged stupor and went warmongering in his name. Kirk revives him, and Gill tells the people war is bad, and then he gets shot. And then everyone realizes that war is bad, and they all stop fighting and start respecting each other. The end. Pretty cheesy, with a moral lesson about as subtle as an episode of Sesame Street, but in its way it was very Trek. And really, the episode isn't so much about the Nazis, they're just used as an example of how the best intentions can lead us to a very bad place. Now we finally got all this Nazi stuff out of our system, and we can get back to stories about tribbles and finding reasons for Kirk to punch aliens square in their stupid alien faces, right? Not so much.
We need breathing room.
Earth, Hitler, 1938.
I beg your pardon.
So now, the original series is finally done with Nazis and making Kirk defeat the forces of the Third Reich. And the good people behind The Next Generation were way too infatuated with Sherlock Holmes and tachyons to worry much about World War II. But unfortunately, that couldn't last. In 1998, Voyager aired a 2-part episode called The Killing Game. In it, an alien race called the Hirogen had taken over Voyager, and they were pretending to be Nazis. If you think that sentence doesn't make sense, then it's too bad you weren't writing for Star Trek in the 1990s. See, the Hirogen are a race that values the hunt above all other things. Think Predator, but way, way less cool. So, after capturing Voyager, they decide the best way to hunt is to stage elaborate historical recreations on the holodeck. So let's all get the Voyager folks together, and then we'll put chips in their brains so that they think they're members of the French underground, and we'll pretend to be Nazis, and then we have the best hunt. But not really, because it's not a hunt when we know who they are and where they are, and we have an army.
And just to make it more fair, take the best warrior on the ship and make her holo-pregnant, since the actress who played B'Elanna was pregnant in real life, so why not, I guess? Just one of many painful subplots. They don't even bother to give this father character a name.
So what actually ends up happening is they spend most of their time in a nightclub where 7 of 9 is a jazz singer named Mademoiselle Neuf, which is Mrs. 9
Oui, oui.
for our American listeners. This goes on for 2 hours. And then they beat the Nazis, escape the holodeck, and ask the aliens to leave. And then the aliens leave. Nothing about this episode makes sense. There is literally no reason for the Hirogens to dress up like Nazis and pretend they don't know who the Voyager crew are for what the show makes clear is many, many days. It was just a terrible pretense to have the heroic Voyager crew act out scenes from much better movies like Casablanca and to show how cool it is to have aliens in Nazi uniforms. Hey, Paul, look at that alien Nazi. Did we just blow your mind? Unfortunately, the writers of Enterprise thought that this was a great idea.
Wait, don't blame just the writers. Brannon Braga was the showrunner on Voyager, and he wanted alien Nazis on that series because he thought, and I quote, "It'd be cool." And then they kept Braga on to showrun the first 3 seasons of Enterprise, and as his final creative act before he was fired, he shoved more alien Nazis into the season 4 premiere.
So I guess Brannon Braga wanted to copy Voyager Season 4 with his own 2-part episode featuring the Third Reich. But they realized that having aliens pretend to be Nazis was lame. What we need to do is have actual aliens go back in time to actual Earth in the 1930s and actually become actual Nazis. Whoa. See, one of the main plot threads in Enterprise was this notion that governments a few hundred years in the future are engaged in a temporal Cold War, which is a very boring way of saying that like 700 years from now, everyone goes all Skynet and is sending back agents in time to change things to make the future better for them. And of course, everyone who writes for a science fiction show knows that the single most important event in the entire history of the world was when the Allies, i.e. America, won World War II. So it makes sense that by changing that, you could change the future of the entire galaxy. Just like it makes sense that famously tolerant and open-minded Nazis would be super cool with aliens showing up to a beer hall in Munich and signing up for the SS. So the Enterprise goes back in time, don't worry how, and finds that the Nazis have won World War II and have apparently moved all of their important operations to a swastika-draped White House for some reason. They've also apparently changed the official language of the Third Reich to German accented English. The Enterprise crew get involved with the American resistance movement.
After Archer escapes the clutches of an SS officer, who happens to be played by the same actor who was the unnamed father of B'Elanna's baby in that Voyager episode. So, twice on Star Trek, twice a Nazi. Oh, and hey, look, it's Bobby from The Sopranos.
Playing basically Bobby from The Sopranos, and to work to overthrow their German alien overlords. Fortunately, the Vulcan science officer T'Pol, who has never been to Earth and is not a member of Starfleet and never wanted to be on the ship in the first place, is one of the universe's greatest experts on 20th century Earth history. So she is able to figure out exactly where history went wrong, beginning with the assassination of Joseph Stalin in 1917. While working to piece together this warped historical tapestry, they somehow find a way to make secret underground anti-Nazi resistant movements incredibly boring.
They were so bored they couldn't bother to create new shots. That footage that Vosk shows the German major, that's reused. And the building that the aliens destroy is actually just the Nazi headquarters from the Voyager episode.
Finally, when they run out of boring things to do and be bored about, and they get tired of making up time-related science terms, we get a battle over New York between the Enterprise and 3 Stuka dive bombers, which now have laser guns. After the huge spaceship is very nearly destroyed by propeller planes, the Enterprise is able to fire photon torpedoes at the alien base, and it blows up. And then history rewrites itself, and everything goes back to normal, because photon torpedoes are magic. And that's the tragic history of Star Trek's dealings with the Nazis. Out of all the empires and movements and peoples and wars and the thousands of years of human history, why do the Nazis keep showing up in the future? Because it's easy. When a guy with a German accent shows up in a Wehrmacht uniform, the writers don't have to spend time explaining who he is or why he's bad. Our lifetime of movies and TV shows have already trained us to know. Even with a universe full of alien races like the Cardassians, who are basically not very subtle copies of the Nazis, we still find ourselves going to the actual Nazi source again and again and again. And if you're worried that you've seen the last Nazi in Star Trek, don't be! With the new Star Trek television series right around the corner, I'm pretty sure it's only a matter of time until someone in a black trench coat and wireframe glasses is telling the latest Starfleet captain, "We have ways of making you talk." But until that happy day, this is Fractal, signing off.